Hey, everybody, absolutely stunning news over here this week. We have a video version of this week's episode available on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/late night. Go over there, sign up at any tier, and you'll have access to it. Once again, that's patreon.com/late night. Now, enjoy the show. Is this your studio we're looking at here?
This is my studio/bedroom.
I love it. Look at this.
Yeah, so I've got my Rhodes keyboard right here.
Oh, it's just the best sound.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I got really lucky that I found one of these really rare ones, the 54 model, which is slightly less backbreaking than the 73, being only 54 notes long instead of 73 notes. Still, you don't want to tour with it, but it's nice to know that it's not going to break your back moving it floor to floor.
Yeah.
And then I got like a Moog on top of that that's been newly acquired and very exciting to have like a real like analog synth right next to me for writing and stuff like that.
Is it like a classic Moog or one of the newer ones?
It's not a classic. It's the subsequent 37.
Oh, those are great.
It's so nice. It can do everything you want it to do, and for quickly like adding something that's real and right there. Here, I can
show
give
it.
a little pan over.
There it is.
Synth show and tell.
We use one of those pretty regularly, and it just has some amazing leads on it and some really great basses too.
Mm-hmm.
We've used those a bunch in our stuff. Like all pre-assigned patches, some of them are just, it's like, what are you fucking doing? When would any human use this?
Yeah, I mean, I just like starting with just the blank INIT init one or something.
Yeah.
Such a good synth for knowing like what you can dial in and how to manipulate it, and that it's all like right there in front of you. I've got a Triton.
Oh, nice.
Korg over here, and like that's all like scrolling around in like really hard to read little LED
oh my god
displays. And so to like go from that to being like, oh, here are all the knobs that I need. There's not another set of knobs.
Do you read the manuals?
I have read some manuals at some point in my life, and then I think I've applied that one reading of like, read one manual, you've read them all, and kind of applied that. I think for specific things, like I really love, my favorite of the small synths is the JDXI by Roland.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I've always tried to keep like a light footprint of the synths I use on stage. Mm-hmm. And so I started with the Microkorg in the Microkorg Renaissance.
Yeah.
And just like in its peak, it had just been both Mates Estate on one end and Pharrell on the other, doing excellent work on it. And so I kind of had that. And then over the years, kind of just swapped out like different small synths that I could easily put in a backpack for touring.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I landed on the JDXI, I was like, this is amazing. So there's been a couple times that I've looked up specific things to do in it for the live show that I just wanted to be able to switch things on the fly without kind of going deep into the programming on stage and be like, hold on. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it.
Dial. Yeah.
I would watch a whole show of just like dialing in synth presets. Just like, hey, check this one out. Isn't that cool? Wow, that sounds fucked up.
Yeah, as long as you show it on the screen. Yeah. And if the audience can see all the names, because they always have hilarious names.
Yes, that some, engineer or computer person thought were really clever.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's not quite as funny.
Blade Jogger.
Yeah.
No, wait, that's too obvious. Knife Runner.
Yeah.
I would use Knife Runner. Don't know what it sounds like, but that would just be every single track.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream synth that you do not yet own?
I guess I would like to have like an old Moog, like the Model D or the something like that. I'm not a huge gearhead. I'm very happy using my like where we've come from when I was, a little grade 8 student with my Fruity Loops and tracking with like kind of half on my computer and half with like an old tape deck.
Yeah.
The fact that we have VSTs now, especially like the Arturia ones.
Oh, those are great.
They rule.
They're so great. And for like writing and being able to immediately like hear what that instrument can do is mind-blowing. So I'm very happy keeping a lighter footprint.
I'm exactly the same way. Like, I'm not much of a gearhead. I know the things I like, but I don't really know all the different stuff. I just kind of find things that work and then go for it. It's always awesome to be in a playground where you can, sample stuff.
I do really like old gear.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not wanting to use it. Not sure if I would want to be the sole owner.
Also, I don't want to fix it.
Yeah, right.
Also, so expensive.
They're crazy.
Yeah. I'm just about halfway done mixing the first part of a quadruple synth record that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
And I started at this, it was a synth museum back in 2008 when I first went to it. And then now it's turned into a national music center. But basically in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada here, we've got this very unique synth collection of about 150 or so of the rarest synths in the world.
Really? In Calgary?
Yeah, in Calgary, yeah. Including the famous Tonto synthesizer.
Oh, yeah.
What's that one?
That one is the synth from Phantom of the Paradise.
Whoa.
And it was also on a bunch of Stevie Wonder records.
Shit, this looks cool.
It's like a big space station, basically.
Yeah, you've seen pictures of it for sure.
So the first track off the record is a song I made completely like live off the floor on the synthesizer, basically.
How cool did you feel?
It was in Mutato Musica, the Mark Mothersbaugh.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. You basically want to have 8 more arms when using it because it is essentially just a bunch of synths put together. I'm not sure what the final knob count on it is.
It's like 1,000 or something.
Yeah, you have to jump around a lot to manipulate the sound.
God.
So I recorded about 100 synths there and a lot of like really cool old ones that several were over $1 million.
Oh
So
God. How did you get permission to do that?
I applied for like the artist in residency program.
Wow, cool.
And got accepted, and the Canadian government funds the recording process, and you do like 2 community shows, I think.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. I started in 2020. Yeah, like just after I left Zoontech. Not on the mic this time.
Yeah, right.
Not on the mic
Congratulations,
this
you missed
time.
the mic, yes.
That was like a month after the Generator show there.
Right. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Wow, what a fun opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking a few episodes ago / probably a year ago about like the unique versions of the Mellotron. There was one called the Skeletron that just had a completely clear housing.
Yep.
Haven't been able to get that one out of my brain.
The Novatron.
Mm.
Novatron was one that I got to play there. Instead of being in like a wooden box, it's like built into like a flight case.
Oh, wow. Weird.
Didn't sound very different from a Mellotron. If you got a Mellotron connoisseur being like, it's not called a Mellotron if it's not from the
mellow region of France. I've never played a real Mellotron. I've played like the newer versions that don't use the tape.
Oh, it's super fun. It's interesting with playing one of the old ones. Sometimes you realize the chord isn't going to work because the sample isn't long enough. Like the sample ends before you change to the next chord. Wow. So you're like, we either have to up this tempo.
Yeah, right.
Or I just got to like sample the chord and then make a loop in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And they kind of feel fragile when you're playing them too. Like you press the key down and you can like hear the tape reel starting, and then there's this like feeling when you like lift off of the tape rewinding itself really quick, so you hear this like like
I know some people still record to tape, but I mean, what a cool era of music to have that like physical thing, like real thick shit.
Yeah.
Right. That's on the reels. And there was so much cool classical stuff people were doing with it.
When I first did music education for our first project, we had to record to tape.
Oh, you really?
Whoa.
And edit on tape. So we were like getting out the X-Acto knives there and splicing edits. And the next project, when we switched over to digital DAWs, we were all very grateful.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We're just going to give you gratitude for the technological advances in this field.
It was such a good experiment. I'm so glad the teacher started with that lesson.
When did people really start recording digitally? In the late 90s?
I think even early 90s, there was some people seeing ADAT and those kind of like precursor to not tape anymore, but tapes of sorts. And
Yeah.
like the Atari was one of the first computers that people recorded on.
Oh, wow.
I think that was even late 80s, maybe early 90s, that you had a DAW. We had this Atari growing up, actually, but I was pretty young at the time and just played Wayne Gretzky hockey game on it all the time with my brother. But real great graphics.
Oh, of course, yeah. All 8 bits.
Oh, Defenders of the Crown was also this amazing...
Well, I don't know that one.
Yeah, that was a really fun video game too. Oh, and RoboCop.
Oh, hell yeah.
But yeah, like the Atari computer, I forget what the model is called, but that was one of the big sought after computers, like pre-Mac, pre-PC, that musicians like could record on instead of 4 tracks or old like 2-track tape or larger if you had more money.
Sorry to derail this, but I'm looking at Defender of the Crown.
I'll talk about Defenders of the Crown.
Dude,
that was an amazing game.
How do I not know about that? I mean, this is literally when I was playing PC games on my Apple II or early Mac days. So I would have been 1986. I would have been 11 when this came out. This was exactly in my heyday and wheelhouse of playing.
And you missed it. Oh, man.
How?
Yeah, it was amazing. You could do 2-player duels.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my brother and I used to sword fight a lot. You could also go on these like raids to other castles. It was kind of RPG light.
Yeah.
There was like some kind of customized stuff involved, but it was also a pretty straightforward gateway RPG for me as a kid.
It looks like you can get an iOS and Android version now. Is that true? What?
Ooh.
Wow.
Time for some emulating.
Move over, Warzone.
You know, you can get all these like browser-based emulators.
Yeah, I've thought about getting those emulators. Like I do like a lot of those classic games.
Yeah.
I'm 38 and all these games were kind of like things my older brother played. And I kind of have a lot of memories of like early video games.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of grew up with the Nintendo. Like
the NES.
Yeah, and then Super Nintendo. And so I've constantly thought about getting something like that, especially even for the wireless capabilities and also it not breaking. Like I actually have a Nintendo still, but like half the time where it's like, hey, let's play some Super Mario Brothers 3. It'll be awesome. And then half the time we're just like blowing in the cartridge being like, yeah, this is going to work this time.
Well, I love that, you know, on the Switch, they have that subscription service where you can get most of those old games for both NES and Super Nintendo.
That's cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's so great.
With the addition of like save states, like outside of.
Yes.
Very useful.
Oh my God. To be able to save, how much of my youth was wasted trying to get back to where I had been on Super Mario 3? Like a lot.
Just getting those flutes.
Oh my God, dude. Oh, the fact that you could save and now kids don't know how good they fucking have it these days.
Yeah. Did either of you get into Bomberman when you were a kid?
No, I don't know Bomberman.
No.
The original Bomberman was like at least the first memories I have of 4 friends sitting in a room together playing a multiplayer video game together.
Nice.
And it was for TurboGrafx 16 and it was way ahead of its time. That whole system was just the beta of consoles.
Yeah.
Just being like superior. But just like that Marty McFly moment being like, you know, it's like, you're not ready for this yet, but your kids will love it.
Right. Were there consoles available in Canada that weren't available in the US and vice versa? Because, for example, I wouldn't expect this to be the case, at least not as much. I talked to British friends and they're like, oh, you guys didn't have a
Mega Drive too.
Right. And it's like, no, actually, I've never even heard of that. And it's something that was only available there.
We were very much piggybacking off American video game culture, but I did go to school briefly in Australia and they call Sega Genesis down there Mega Drive for some reason. And I believe specifically Mega Drive 2, if I recall.
That's awesome. So when you were a kid, you lived in Australia?
No, sorry. I was just an adult going to a university playing Mega Drive 2.
Nice. Why did you go to Australia for university? Was that just wanted to try it or what?
I highly recommend anyone who's listening to this who is in university in, first year or thinking about going to university, do the exchange program. It is such an amazing experience. Not only is it this like opportunity that just really forces you into a new environment and it's very temporary. You have your time that you're going to be there, but then also the amazing thing called pass fail, because
Right.
the universities essentially don't want to mess up their GPA.
Mhm.
So most, at least at the time that I did this, I believe it's still the case that they just kind of write it off as pass fail, and so it doesn't equate into your GPA. So I'm not saying go slack off, but you can
You can go
definitely
have fun.
and not be as critical on your academia, and do things like play Mega Drive too.
I remember friends in college that went to the UK for a year or a semester, mostly a year. And they were like, look, it's a totally different system. What are you going to fucking do? Did you pass? Great.
Yeah.
It's different enough that they don't even try to really equate things.
I wasn't particularly slacking off. I was a good student, but first mark back was like, oh, I usually have one of the higher letters closer to the top of the alphabet.
Where in Australia were you?
I went to the University of Western Sydney in
Oh, nice.
beautiful Penrith on the edge of the Blue Mountains.
Wow.
But I also got to go to Australia in high school because my dad did some work with the government down there, and he was a
spy. Sounds
he
like
was a
where
spy.
you're going. Yeah, right.
he was a public service and political science prof.
Mhm.
And so he would go and study comparative things between the Australian system and the Canadian system.
Oh, cool.
So I got to go down for like 2 months in grade 10 with him. And as a result, got to go see where this was. And we also went to Bondi Beach.
Oh, nice.
So when I was going back, I was like, oh, I could either live in this like 2 hours inland like campus housing,
Yeah.
or I could try and find the cheapest apartment
By the
possible
beach.
by the beach and surf every day. And that's what I did. And I commuted
the move.
2.5 hours to school.
Oh, my God.
But I did all my work on the train. So I 5 hours a day was like spent on school.
Well, you were going every day pretty much to school.
No, I also luckily got my classes so that it was only 3 or 4 days a week. So it was pretty nice. I actually finished all my schoolwork for the only time in my academia career halfway through the semester. And then the second half, I just read Life of Pi and had a fun time.
Have you ever toured down there?
I did a short tour for Australian Music Week in Sydney.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I did just like a Sydney show and a couple of the smaller townships around, but haven't been to like a long tour or played Big Day Out or anything like that.
Yeah. We did 4 dates there. We did Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, and just
Nice.
great audiences, great
yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Especially, it's such a far away place from the rest of the world that when you get there, people are like, oh my God, you're here. Cool.
Yeah. All the posters I played had like larger than my name was from Canada. It's like from Canada, Rich Aucoin.
Yeah. I didn't realize until we got there, but apparently Perth, it's like the city of over 1 million people. That's the farthest away from any other city of over 1 million people.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's far Western Australia, and Australia is big, and it's also on the ocean. So it's like right in the middle of nowhere. And Perth is a big city. It's got, everything big city has, but there's just like nothing else around it, which is so interesting.
It often feels like where I live here in Halifax, Nova Scotia is kind of like the smaller version of Perth, North America.
Yeah.
The drive from here to Montreal, which is like the next biggest city, is 14 hours. So when
Oh
a
my God,
band's
really?
touring in North America, the closest they get is Montreal, and then they like divert down. And maybe if you're lucky, there's a main show like Bangor or Portland, but it's pretty much like Montreal, and then Boston is the next date.
Yeah. So did you know the Twerp guys out in Halifax, or did you only meet them later?
Yeah, I've known since real OG days.
Yeah. Back when there were other people in the band that I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And the pylon was just like, maybe I'll put that on my head.
I've seen pictures of the old costumes, and they're charmingly janky.
Oh, yeah.
And lo-fi. I love it, especially considering
where it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the newest version of those costumes are like
Yeah.
Bananas.
Killer.
It's cool. It's kind of like looking at the old prototype drawings for Star Wars.
Yeah, right.
When it's like you see the first Chewbacca and you're like, all right, we're thinking this. And then
I'm thinking polka dots for Chewbacca because
give a couple more, maybe workshop it a couple more times and then come back.
That's awesome. So did you guys just know each other from the scene?
Yeah, I just knew each other from the scene.
Because you're a little bit older than they are.
I'm a bit older,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
And Hogan's also my second cousin.
What? I didn't
Yeah.
know this.
What?
I think we kind of knew it, but we're like, okay, yeah, like let's look at, yeah.
Huh. I had no idea. I didn't know you guys were pseudo related.
I met him at a family funeral when we were really young.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of the only times where the very large extended family got together. And it was interesting because our family has kind of shrunk over the years and been more kind of detached from extended family. So it was in my mind that even though it's like attached to this like sad mourning, it was like, whoa, who are all these other people? And why aren't we hanging out with them?
Right. Especially when they like live in the same town or nearby, right?
Yeah, and there was just so many cousins and kids and stuff hanging out. It was like one of the only memories of like, oh, here's like what a real like big extended family must feel like.
That's awesome.
Except you get it every year. And then you're like complaining about it being like, oh, gotta go see all these people.
I was asking one of them, I'm curious if you know this too. You must. The giant creepy Christmas tree in the mall nearby.
Which went viral this year, yeah.
Do go on.
I'd read about beforehand and texted them, assuming like, hey, you guys know about this, right? And they were all like, yeah, of course.
Oh,
Everybody knows about that. And then it went viral this year, I saw.
Yeah, it was interesting, like growing up. I mean, obviously looking at it now and seeing, on Fallon.
It was on Fallon?
It was on one of the big late night shows. I think it was Fallon.
What do I Google to get eyes on this creepy Christmas tree?
Woody the Christmas tree.
Oh, God.
You're going to love it, lady.
Oh.
That's already.
Get ready.
Oh,
Just turn on private browsing first.
Oh, no.
It's funny looking at the photos now and like hearing all the like late night jokes. I fully understand and get your experience you're having right now. Being like, this is so creepy. But as a kid, you were like, none of that clocked.
Of
You're
course.
just like,
Sure.
Woody's amazing. Woody talks to me. Woody is huge.
Yeah.
Could probably talk to whoever Woody wants to.
So is there a person in the tree talking to people? With a mic
No
or what?
one has to be in the tree. They're actually like watching you nearby and like kind of talking into a walkie-talkie or something that then is, I don't know what the technology they used, like, cause this has been going on since like the like late 80s. So,
Right.
so yeah, like some sort of like walkie-talkie system. And they're like, oh, and what else do you want for Christmas?
Oh, my God.
And then
That's
the mouth
really,
just like
really
moves
funny.
with every word said.
Oh, I remember that era of animatronics, the Chuck E. Cheese type
Yeah.
thing where the thing just goes bah, 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 and then the words somehow come out of it. I feel like we should introduce the show here.
We should do this at a cool 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the point is we remembered, which really makes us professionals.
Yes,
Do
indeed.
it.
So everybody, this is Late Night with Brian Wecht. Sitting across from me today, we have Leighton Gray.
Howdy, the one who just spoke. That was Brian Wecht. He said that, but
What's
I'm just
up?
telling you again because he can be dishonest sometimes, No.
No. I
Hold on.
completely reject
I just feel the need
that
to verify.
characterization.
I just want everybody at home to know that your name is Brian Wecht. And mystery guest,
Yeah. Trust but verify.
mystery guest. I trust you with your answer to this question. Who are you?
My name is Rich Aucoin, and I'm a musician from Canada and space.
And space, that's right.
Perfect.
Which is really where you and Torp grew up together, was in
Yeah.
space. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
space is a little part of Nova Scotia. Canada.
Yeah.
Space, have you heard of it?
Yeah.
No one can hear you scream? It's great.
Perhaps you've seen it. We were just last night looking at constellations. Do you ever use like a sky app to look at the stars?
I have, yeah. I love that.
No, what?
My mind was blown the first time someone like pulled their phone out and was like, check this out.
Do you not know this, Leighton?
No.
Well,
Oh.
you're about to have your mind blown, just like I was.
I think it's actually the best thing you can do with a mobile phone. The one I have is called Sky Guide. although maybe it's not available anymore.
Yeah, I have Sky Guide.
Yeah. So you pull up this thing and you just point it up or down, and it shows you what you're looking at. And it shows you the names of the stars, the names of the constellations, pictures of the constellations.
Mhm.
And, you see something bright in the sky and you're like, what is that? Sirius? Is that Venus? Is it blah, blah? You can just boom, right there, see what it is. And let me just say, it's the greatest thing you've ever seen as an adult. When you're 7 and you can suddenly look up at the sky and you can look below you to see what the stars are below the Earth, and it shows where the galactic plane is.
Whoa.
So you can see where the Milky Way would, is coming through. It is really one of these mind-blowing experiences, especially living in a place like we do, LA, with lots of light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks to Elon Musk, whatever, where you can't see a lot of the stars. Just knowing that they're out there, we can see Orion and we can see the Big Dipper when it comes out, and a few of the other brighter stars, Vega, we can see pretty regularly, the real bright ones.
Mhm.
But just seeing everything else that's out there hiding behind it is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I've never been in a place where I've been able to see a sufficient amount of stars. I just have never really gotten out to an area without light pollution to see, which I should do.
It's the best.
Ever in your life.
I mean, places where here's some normal amount of stars, but none of the places where it's you can see so much shit right now.
Yeah, just going out to Joshua Tree or something like that.
Never done it.
That's a great place.
Wow. You got to do it. It's amazing. It's
Okay.
yeah, you're just flying through the universe. It's incredible.
It is kind of life-changing. I have very, very bad vision, so I can't resolve the stars very well. I can't see them very well. So even with regular stars, it takes, I miss a lot of it. But in the desert, I'm just this must be what it feels like for a person with normal vision to look at the sky. And actually, speaking of Australia, I remember going down there and whipping out the sky app and being like, oh my God, it's different stars.
It's
all
different.
flipped.
Yeah. It's so cool to realize that, oh yeah, I'm standing on, almost a sphere, whatever, an ellipsoid, and my face is pointing out to a different direction, and I can see other things in the universe. It really is a wild experience.
I've got to travel to LA and spend a couple winters of my life there. And one thing I'm always telling friends to do immediately as the first thing they do is go to Griffith.
Yep.
It's the best way to see the city.
Totally.
It's a lovely hike up there.
It's huge.
It's huge. There's a free space museum that's incredible. Going and seeing one of the planetarium shows is super relaxing and lovely any time of day.
Yeah, it's great.
At night, they have a bunch of volunteers that are just super stoked about stars and just have 3 incredible telescopes just on the grass that you can just casually walk up to.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you want to come see Jupiter? Well, put your eye hole in this and
check this out, asshole.
Yeah. and then you can wait in line and sometimes get lucky and there's no line and go with the big life-changing big old telescope they have on the roof. And I remember seeing Jupiter through that and it just being wow, I'm seeing the thing that I've seen in all these photos, but with my own eye right now for the first time.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's amazing. I go every time I go to LA and usually try and go to a planetarium show every time someone new hasn't been to one. I'm like, well, we're going to a planetarium show.
Yeah.
And then we're going to walk through the Space Museum. My second album cover is inspired by Griffith because
oh, cool.
It's called Ephemeral, and the cover is the footprint from the moon landing because Griffith decided to sum up the entire existence of humanity with that one photo. They basically have a ratio walk that you do down to the space part of the museum. And at the start of it, they're like, here's the beginning of time. And then they're like, the Big Bang. And then there's all this beautiful shells and stars. And it's kind of showing the formation of the universe. And then you're just walking down this long, long ramp down to the start of the museum. And then at the very end, they're like, Earth is made.
Yeah.
And then the last little sliver line is humans exist. Here they are.
Yeah. It really is nuts. Just thinking
Yeah.
about what a tiny little slice of
existence
Yeah.
we've lived in so far in the universe.
Yeah. Well, I can believe this because I never go anywhere, but in the 5 coming up 6 years I've lived here, I've never been to Griffith Park Observatory. I see it every day, and I've never
You
been.
got to go. It's amazing.
And Griffith Park more broadly is also incredible.
Super pretty.
It's such an interesting thing to have in the middle of the city, and it is just incredible.
I also go over to Bronson every time I'm up
Mhm.
to, and like through Runyon, and every time I end up having the conversation with who I'm there with, being like, we are in one of the largest populated cities in the world right now.
Totally.
And there's no one here, and this is beautiful. And it's incredible. In the Bronson, it's like where the original like OG 60s Batman Bat Cave was filmed. And so you can go through this like beautiful tunnel in a mountain.
Whoa.
Yeah. We did a little hike the other day in the Santa Monica Mountains, basically like the hills right in the middle of town. And I don't know if this is true, but the little plaque at the bottom, the informational plaque, was saying it's the only mountain range that bisects a single major city.
The only one?
So I think normally those would be different cities, but LA is just so big that it's the only mountain range that's in the middle of a single city.
The Santa Monica Mountains you're talking about.
Yeah, which are basically the Hollywood Hills, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That fact may be untrue. I didn't verify it, but it's also plausible. But no matter what, it's still the same thing where you're like, you can see the fucking city from right there. And you're like, we're in the middle of, the wilderness right now, but we're also in the middle of one of the largest cities on the planet. Fuck, it's wild. Yeah. I've never lived anywhere where you just have such an immediate crossover between the natural world and the urban world as in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I spent a winter living in North Highland and would run up into Runyon and stuff like that every day. And, when we were talking about stars earlier, it's like you have to drive further to see what we're talking about. But I'm like, the thing you mean I'd get in my car for 5 minutes and then see anytime I want.
Right.
Being in such a smaller place here and feeling that need to have some isolation and get in those spots, it is truly a lovely amenity for the city to be able to get into those mountain ranges.
Yeah. You keep coming back to Halifax. Like you kind of base there and then you spend time other places, but you're always...
I think when I was younger that I envisioned that I was going to like live in different places, LA and Hollywood, and, growing up loving movies and wanting to be in the movie industry and stuff as a kid, I was envisioning moving down there at some point, but then I just really love it here. And it's nice with the internet to be able to like sustain a career enough.
Totally.
While not having to always be immersed in a larger city, I guess.
Well, yeah. And I'm sure vastly more affordable than Los Angeles.
Yeah. My rent's only gone up $100 in 16 years.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. I've been living in this bedroom for 16 years and pay $550 a month.
Oh my Jesus Christ,
dude.
That's upsetting to hear. I wanted to ask about, I'm looking at your vinyl.
I've been thinking the same thing this whole time.
Here's a lot of my favorite records.
Is that the Clockwork Orange soundtrack I see up there?
It is.
Yep, one of my favorites.
It's a French copy that I found in Paris one time.
The Wendy Carlos stuff on that soundtrack is just the best. I cannot get enough of it.
Oh, it's amazing. Like her stuff on that, The Shining. I was a huge fan as a kid. I grew up playing classical piano, and I think as cheesy as they are from other people's perspectives, I loved the Switched On records growing up.
Dude, they're amazing. They're incredible. Absolutely.
Where do we even find them now?
They mass produce so many of them that they're pretty easy to find if you want to get a copy on vinyl.
And I'm sure they're available digitally too.
eBay.
Oh, yeah.
Were they not for a while? Because I feel like I've tried to...
Wait, are they not right now?
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Oh, okay. Oh, check YouTube. I think YouTube has them all uploaded.
Yeah, that's plausible.
Also, I feel like every time I say this, it sounds like I'm sponsored by them, but wow. YouTube Premium changes your life.
Pretty fucking great.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
It's like the last place where we sit through the worst commercials And the first moment that I like clicked on a video and it just started, I was like,
Yep.
oh, well, that was worth it.
And you can play the music when the app isn't like on your screen on your phone.
Oh, yeah. I fall asleep every night to like Alan Watts and Terrence McKenna and these like long, like 4-hour lectures that I turn off at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, I wish that it had a baked in sleep timer. That would be perfect.
Yes, that would be much better.
I use a separate sleep timer app, but still, it's great.
Yeah, I wonder why there's not just like a hack to just like program your phone to just volume down at a certain time or something.
At least on an iPhone, you can set a timer to a particular action, like stop playing. So I know you have an Android.
Yeah, anything with Galaxy is like a Bixby routine for whatever. It takes me 2 seconds to turn on my 20-minute sleep timer, and then it's rolling, and I've got my ASMR on, and I'm out.
Oh yeah, I love rocking some of those before sleep. It's funny, the wall's also slowly getting taken over by more soundtracks. Like I've got Raiders and Star Wars and Alien and Aliens, Goldfinger.
Very excited about the Illinois and OK Computer.
Yeah, Illinois was like a huge record for me.
It's so great.
It's one of those records though too that despite it being like a masterpiece, it really reminded me that the 45-minute lengths of record always like had that like kind of medium built-in stuff that David Byrne talks about in the how music works and stuff. But the record is so long that I find the way I enjoy it the most is listening to Chicago and then ending my one listening and then starting after Chicago and listening to the rest of the record. Because then I feel like I'm like energized enough. Because the last few tracks of the record, like Night Zombies, they're all such good tracks, but I find I'm like so tired at the end.
Yes.
It definitely made me be like, okay, don't make a record as long.
It's just like tired and depressed, which is, you know, Sufjan's whole...
The Wayne Gacy track always...
I love that song, dude.
That's such a beautiful song,
favorites.
But I get really sad every time. Have you ever gone to the Museum of Death?
Yeah.
I have not.
So I went there one time, much like your last guest. I'm very fascinated by death and was excited about it being like existential. I really liked the first section that was all about different cultural kind of like approaches towards death and death like rituals.
What year did you go?
Oh, I went in 2012. And so the first part of the museum, I'm like, okay, I'm really into this. This is sweet. And then you round this corner and they're like, hey, you like cults? Check this shit out. Oh man, then they have like a fucking life-size recreation of the bedrooms from the
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
Oh
and you're just like, oh no, I'm sad. I'm real sad. And then you go into the Charles Manson thing and then you feel so sad for everyone that got sucked in by that piece of shit. And then you're just like, oh no. And then there's just getting darker and darker. And then you get into the like serial killer art room and you're like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I didn't think I was signing up. Like it's funny how like I'm like, I love death. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a real gauntlet.
Love natural death.
I love natural death. I think it's probably changed layouts in the past couple of years because now they front load the serial killer art. So it's like immediate John Wayne Gacy painting.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not sure how deep I would have made it into it. Or unless maybe, does it make it better? Because then at the end they're like, but it's not all doom and gloom. Sometimes you just die in your sleep.
Sometimes people don't murder you viciously. Yeah.
At the very end, they're like, hey, we know that was a gauntlet. You just walked through a whole hallway that had a bunch of gory graphic car crash pictures. You know what's going to make you feel better? A screening of Faces of Death next to a life-size replica of Gigi Allen.
Do they really have that?
Yeah, they do.
Oh man.
I don't know the full story, so this is probably hearsay, but that Museum of Death is in hot water recently for supporting some neo-Nazi shit.
Oh shit.
I'm sorry. People have to chill the fuck out about Gigi Allen.
I mean, do you know anyone who's constantly like, yeah, Gigi Allen's so cool? Like,
well, no, I know people who say that ironically, but also like, I don't know. I think I get it, but also calm down.
Oh, wait. You get to use your favorite.
Oh yeah. Jesus Christ, calm down.
Yeah.
You have a very irregular segment on this. Really just a theme song, which is called Jesus Christ, Calm Down. And I think we're going to put in that theme music right here. So people who are too into Gigi Allen, Jesus Christ, calm down. Jesus Christ, calm down. Calm down.
Well, and also I'm going to hit you with Uno reverse. Jesus Christ, calm down. Because I don't know anybody except for Vernon who jokingly talks about how more people should take a shit on stage. Never else ever do I hear anyone talking about Gigi Allen.
Well, okay. On Sharpling's Best Show, one of my favorite comedy things.
I've listened to many a Best Show.
Oh, okay. Well, we have to talk about this. But, Worcester will occasionally call in character and refer to Kevin Allen as, his idol or whatever. Okay. If we're talking Best Show, let's talk Best Show. Cannot get enough. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, we listen to it a lot. It's not broken up, so I still technically play trumpet in a band called Wyndham Earl.
Nice.
For Twin Peaks fans out there.
You've got our attention.
And it's a lovely, really fun kind of mid-aughts instrumental synth horn band.
Oh, rad.
Stefan, it's his band. He just like pulls things from everything from like kind of that like TV Carnage era, and everything is terrible, kind of like VHS finding, and cuts things together. And so the show's like really bombastic and fun. And
you're describing all the things I like.
His sense of humor and the whole band really is Best Show. And so just long touring drives where that's all we listen to. It was interesting because it was ahead of the podcast era.
For sure.
In my mind, it's like The Sopranos to the era of golden TV.
100%.
And just kind of people getting comfortable with a kind of loose, unplanned kind of discussion. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes you're just kind of comforted by hanging out with them. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And he's got a good ear for for like knowing when to like move things along and be like, okay, you're done.
Yes. 100%. This is well before I ever listened to it, but that original Rock Rotten Rule bit was like pass around the cassette kind of thing. I've been listening regularly since 2006. In fact, I would say I haven't missed a show since 2006.
Wow.
So right around the time they probably started podcasting it. And I grew up with WFMU because that was one of my local radio stations in North Jersey. So I had been a WFMU listener for way before that even.
Did you ever call in?
I called into other FMU shows, but never the Best Show. I was always too scared.
Yeah.
Too much pressure.
It's like it could go well, or I could get made fun of by the person I love listening to.
100%. And I was always like, what am I going to say? Like, if I had something to say, I would call in, but
just call in and be like, I love garage rock too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I never felt like I had anything to contribute. So happily we'll listen all day long, but I doubt I will ever be a caller on that show. I have called in, at least in high school, I called into this other FMU comedy program, 7 Second Delay, which is still on the air and still on WFMU. It's kind of like a stunt radio show, but it used to be very call-in centric. It is still, but less so.
What did you do with your call-in?
Well, I remember one, actually. The subject was most embarrassing deaths, apropos of the recent conversation.
Being shitty enough to get immortalized in a museum called the Museum of Death while Faces of Death plays in the background.
I remember calling in with Stonewall Jackson because he was shot by his own side. And I was like, that's pretty embarrassing. High school me thought that was a great call. And I happily called in with that probably when I was 16. I think it was a popular show, a more popular show back then. It used to be kind of one of their flagship programs, and they were just taking calls and boom, boom, boom. And now it's the same guys doing it who are in their 60s, I think now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That longevity is incredible.
I think they just had their 30th anniversary of doing it.
Yeah.
And they have this really fun chemistry. The one guy, it's a classic like straight man comedy. What's the opposite of a straight man in the comedy duos? Comic relief? I don't know. You know what I mean.
The gay one?
Thank you. Thank you, Leighton. I appreciate that.
That's totally going to stay in the show.
Yeah, of course. Of course it is. Anyway, one guy's the straight man. The other guy is the comedian. And the comedy guy, Andy Breckman, is like a classic comedy writer, wrote on SNL. His persona is arrogant, sarcastic asshole, which is largely the basis for my comedic persona of arrogant, sarcastic asshole.
Yeah.
And he is just one of my comedy heroes and still every bit as funny now as he ever was.
Amazing. Yeah. 30 years.
I know.
Just keeping something up like that, which requires so much effort on a weekly show.
I know. Well, one guy's the station manager, the straight man, Ken. And so he's been running the station forever. So he's like there. The other guy comes in for it. But yeah, no, it just to keep it going that long through, kids and now grandkids and divorces and blah, all the stuff life throws at you to keep it going. I think it's one of those things where I will occasionally run into people who it's got a real cult following, especially among comedy folks, much like The Best Show, although this is a probably cultier and a smaller audience. But occasionally you run into someone, you're like, 7-second delay, and they're like, oh my God, 7 seconds, what? It's like that sort of thing.
I did music and tech for a comedy troupe for a long while. They were called Picnic Face.
Oh, right. I know Picnic Face, of course. I didn't know you did stuff with Picnic Face.
Yeah, yes. So a lot of those videos end with my music at the end of the skit.
I had no idea that was you. Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah. I love Picnic Face. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mark and I and Kyle during like the Power Thirst kind of era.
Yeah.
All lived together here in this place for $450.
Wow.
And then they've since, moved on to other things.
Yeah.
They're actually both in this amazing show, which I highly, highly recommend for anyone who is like a fan of Rick and Morty and like wants something else to fill the in-between times waiting for a new season. Mm-hmm. They have this show called Gary and His Demons.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
And it is amazing. I don't know how to watch it in the States, but in Canada, you can watch it on our CBC stream program called Gem. And it's very, very well done and quite good. Mark also did a series called Dad Drives, which is on YouTube, which I highly recommend as well.
If I remember correctly, they're the trucks. That's one of theirs, right? Yes.
So we did like a weekly show for 4 years and then got a Canadian. Comedy Central is the American one. Comedy Network is the Canadian one. So we had like the Canadian version of that and just got one season. And it was just so amazing to watch them like bad at that level and make even some of their best skits that year, like on the fly. I wasn't involved in the show. Only one of the things when I was doing the weekly tech things, I was like, as a payback, just let me do the theme song to the show. Yeah. And I was like totally being like, this is going to be like the next Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
I'm going to have like this theme song that goes like for like, 5-6 seasons and then gets like reruns and then I'm set for like, but the season came out the year before Key and Peele blew up. Mm-hmm. Broad City as well, maybe. There was another 2 really great shows that kind of like bumped them out of the getting renewed. But if you can find the one season of Picnic Face online somewhere, it's truly delightful to see what those 9 minds came up with.
So you guys were doing a live show before it was that, and you were doing music and tech for that.
Yeah.
While they did it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and actually like Nathan Fielder.
Yeah, of course.
He came down and each week he would give me like a thumb drive for like a new thing. He's like, hey, I just shot this. And they were so amazing. Like I'm a huge, huge fan of Nathan For You. And I think it's one of the greatest things ever made.
Absolutely.
It's the best.
And it's amazing like looking at these videos I have on this old hard drive of like, and if you are, interested listening to this too, just check out like Nathan Fielder's early YouTube stuff pre Nathan For You.
It's really funny.
It's really great.
Have you seen How To with John Wilson?
Oh my God. I've rewatched it like 3 times now.
Isn't it the greatest?
It's amazing. I love it so much.
He produces that, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I love that the trailer has nothing to do with the show.
Yeah.
The trailer is also for fans of Nathan For You that want more Nathan For You. It's really worth watching.
Yeah. That show it's such a like subtle masterpiece. Mm-hmm. Leighton, have you seen this show?
No, but it's one of those ones where I only ever hear glowing praise from people whose comedic tastes I trust a lot. So I don't hear about it often, but when I do, I'm like, okay, I should pay attention to this recommendation.
I just don't understand how they do it. I mean, the amount of footage they get.
Watching it, you're just like, this is the guy. Like, you can't like replicate the idea of the show unless you're this archival guy that just...
Right.
Just like shoots everything and just has an encyclopedic memory of like all the different things they've ever captured.
So what's the bit
The bit is, it starts off with like how to, it could be something stupid. Like, I don't remember any actual examples, but it's like how to eat spaghetti or something like that.
How to make small talk is the first episode.
How to make small talk. And he just starts going down a path and then follows it. And along the way, there'll be these narration, which it thematically links a bunch of the ideas that he's talking about, but does so over footage that you're like, how the fuck did they find these 15 perfect images of exactly the thing they're talking about and get like, it's a guy like walking down the street or like unicycling down the street with a chicken on his head. Yeah. And then you're like, oh my God, that's a guy with a chicken on his head. And then there's someone else with like, a poodle on their head on a bike. And you're like, what? How did I'm making those up?
Yeah. And the linking of things is the real genius.
It's just incredible.
It's kind of a magic act to see it all unfold, that even us describing it right now.
Yeah. This is so beyond my understanding at this moment that I'm sure once I watch it will make total sense.
It is somehow even drier than Nathan For You. Like, if you weren't paying attention, it would just read like a normal, kind of documentary type show. It really is this incredible synthesis of narration and visuals. And he also finds these just these people.
Some of the things would work now that I'm thinking. Some of the people he interviews is just
like the foreskin guy.
Oh my, no spoilers.
There's a foreskin guy, which is...
Isn't there always a foreskin guy?
There's always a foreskin guy.
I think one of the greatest things about it is the turns in the episodes too. Like, you just don't know where the third act is going of it.
Ever.
And it's always so lovely. Like the moment it hits like, oh, this is what the show is actually, this episode's about.
So it always starts in New York. So especially if you have any affinity for New York, it's a great New York show. And then a substantial fraction of the time, he ends up just like somewhere else. And it's like, oh, you're on a cruise now? Okay. Often comes down to he forms this kind of friendship or at least a bond with someone, and then they go do something together, or they let him into their home, or they go on a trip together or something. It is a testament to trusting other people, I guess. And he's never been cruel to people. It's not like a fucking gotcha thing. Mm-hmm. And this is not to say that people always come across looking like geniuses or whatever. A lot of the time you're like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? But it's never unkind. It feels very open-hearted in a way that I love.
I think like that's what it shares with the Nathan For You. And you can see why Nathan was interested in helping get it made, just giving people the opportunity to talk and just like let them do the legwork.
Yes, absolutely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Brian, have you still by this point not seen All Gas No Breaks or Channel 5?
Yeah, I was going to say similar to Andrew from Channel 5 and All Gas No Breaks. Like, so good. Just like lets people talk and is like, there you go.
I still have not, despite blatant your recommendations, I still have not seen it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I think watching it in chronological order is important. Maybe not in necessarily all order, but going back to early stuff before watching what Channel 5 has turned into now.
Yeah.
Because it's in an interesting, like, kind of transitional space right now. I think it hit a stride at the end of All Gas No Breaks, and then they had the big legal fallout, and now it's kind of like building itself back up.
Yeah. And they're doing amazing stuff. And then now there's also getting to the level where like people kind of know who he is at certain events. Like the recent influencer rapper one was so fucking great. That guy is so good at entering a space and just you see how seamlessly he's able to navigate stuff in terms of knowing like when to shut up.
For sure.
He's so quick. Like, goddamn.
I got to see it. All right. So our first segment on the show. Yeah. Now that we've spent the last 15 minutes recommending various shows, our first segment is our pop culture recommendation segment, where you get to recommend a book, movie, video game, music, whatever, something you've been enjoying recently. It's called What's Poppin', and the theme song goes here in post. So I do like to preface every week when I do this that we do add the theme song in post, so you will not hear it right now, but it does go right here.
What's poppin'?
What's poppin'?
Wow.
Oh yeah, what did you think? No, please tell me what you thought.
No, I was really enjoying it in the car today. It was very lovely.
Oh, thank you very much. Rarely do we have a guest that has actually heard the What's Poppin' theme song.
Yeah.
And you did.
God, that's so true.
Yeah.
It must be like a one-handed figure of number of guests who have heard the theme prior to you asking that question.
Well, I do my homework.
Yeah. So, Layton, what's poppin'?
What's poppin' for me is to follow up on whatever the last episode we recorded was.
Who knows? I can't even keep it straight anymore. Yeah.
I woke up 10 minutes before we started recording this episode, and we've recorded many in the past 2 weeks. So at some point recently, I recommended Stephen King's Cujo, and following Stephen King and books starting with a C. What's poppin' for me today is Stephen King's Carrie, which I cannot believe I had gotten this far without reading.
I can't either.
I know. I read it in one sitting last night, and
Whoa.
yeah, it's great. It's also really short, but I like Carrie the movie. I've seen it too many times, or it's just, I don't love the movie. And so that's why I didn't read the book for a really long time, even though I think the movie is iconic and so cool. It's just actually watching it is kind of a drag.
Mm-hmm. It is, correct me if this is wrong, it is a prequel to Sex and the City.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. Okay.
And so the way that it's all hashed out in the book is infinitely more interesting because it's kind of switching from like the prosy first person character stuff with sort of this stuff that gives everything like a scale and a weight to it because it's quoting like books and academic articles talking about this prom night incident and Carrie White and like all it really does this extensive world building that adds this sense of foreboding on top of everything. Stephen King's so good at those like parenthetical, frantic run-on internal monologues of people going crazy. Like that's my shit. And that book is just that, and it's fabulous.
Is there more like telekinesis kind of stuff in the book than in the movie, or?
There's more like discussion from that sort of academic standpoint, like referencing like, oh, and some scholars posit this and others are saying this. And like, it feels very foundational for a lot of future, what would you call that when you have a bunch of different like fake sources, sort of the World War Z or House of Leaves thing? It feels foundational for that kind of later stuff.
I love World War Z. It was a really fun read.
I never read it. I just know that it has that format.
Yeah.
I should read that.
It was a shame that the movie just kind of was like, hey, we're going to take this IP and not use any of its ideas.
Zombie apocalypse. Fuck you. Yeah. It just went full on like action film. Yeah.
The book, since it was written by the guy,
Max Brooks, right?
Yeah.
Mel Brooks.
How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse.
Yeah. Oh.
It was kind of just him, I picture sitting down being like, okay, let me think of all these amazing zombie scenarios. And then was like, I don't want to try and form these into a cohesive like narrative.
Right.
I'm just going to make it a bunch of short stories. And that was such a great read for someone who I'm addicted to zombie movies and watched a lot of bad ones. I just want to see more of like what would happen of like kind of options. Like if there was like a Sim City zombie game,
Zom City,
I would just like hit play and just kind of watch how it plays out each time.
There must be something like that, right? That's a great idea.
I don't know. Yeah. It's funny actually, when I was a kid, to kind of like show where I'm at in age, is we had a computer lab where we like learned typing and stuff like that. And in social studies class, we learned city development with a newly released game called Sim City.
Really?
Wow.
That's
And
funny.
we had like a
Badass.
Mac lab with all the like old Macintosh 2 classics.
Yep. Well, I played SimCity on a Mac SE for sure.
And what we would do is whenever someone got up to use the washroom, we look around and we'd go over, because this was like a school project, like running your city in a reasonable way. So obviously monsters were turned off. So whenever someone got up, there was like a rush to go over to their computer and turn monsters on. So they come back and they're like, what? Why is Godzilla attacking my city?
That's really great.
But yeah, so as someone who's watched way too many bad straight to streaming zombie movies and even the bad ones of a certain legendary George. I just want to see more like what if kind of moments.
What takes the cake for you in terms of zombie media? Like, what's best on your list?
I'm going to start with the weirder one, but Dead Set.
I don't know it.
Never heard of
Dead
it.
Set is incredible. It's the zombie apocalypse through the perspective of the contestants on the UK Big Brother. so they're juxtaposing like the end of the world with the banality of like being on a stupid like reality show.
Mhm.
And so they're like showing outside the control room, like everything's raging, everyone's getting killed. And then they cut back to them who are in an isolated environment and don't know that this is what's going on, are like fighting over like cereal, being like, did you finish all the crumpets? You know, that popular British cereal, crumpets.
Yeah, crumpets.
But-
Right.
Anyway, so that one's amazing.
Oh, it's a Charlie Brooker thing?
Oh, is that who made it? Holy, that just blew my mind. So the
Oh,
guy
shit.
that went on to do Black Mirror started with that. Wow, that tracks.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Anyway, so that was amazing. I really like Dawn of the Dead and
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, I think, are the two penultimate ones. The opening scene from the remake of Dawn of the Dead is
Mhm.
surprisingly amazing. And then I'm not sure about the rest of the movie, but the opening scene is incredible. Also similar, opening scene of 28, not days, but weeks later
Oh, right.
is
I've never seen that one.
incredible. And the rest of the movie is hot garbage. But 28 weeks later was pretty cool too. I guess I like the idea of like them not being zombies but infected. That was a really cool twist.
And they're like fast.
And they're
right?
fast. Yeah.
Right.
And then I grew up playing all the Resident Evil games, but always wished that they just stayed as zombie. Like I remember like turning off the sound and being like really depressed, like midway through a Resident Evil game, being like, why does it have to be all these other weird things? I just want it to be zombies. I want the opening scene from Resident Evil 2 just over and over again. Like the demo for Resident Evil 2 is perfect. And then
You're
it
a
just-
zombie purist.
Yeah. What about you? Sounds like you have some favorite zombies.
No, see, this is really interesting to me because I love horror and I'm a big horror person, but like my two no-goes in terms of stuff that I'm just not interested in is apocalypse stuff and zombies. So this is great to hear from somebody who's really into it. Like I will definitely check out Dead Set because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, Dead Set's fun. Did you not like Night of the Living Dead? Or
I never finished it. Like I got halfway through and I fell asleep.
it's a big milestone in like for like what it was doing at the time. Like it's
For
such
sure.
a cool movie. But I get that it is slow. I'm younger than my two siblings. My brother's 8 years older than me, and my sister's 11 years older than me. And so when I was a kid, I really wanted to see the movie Alien.
Mhm.
And my sister somehow convinced my parents to let me see it at like, I think like 11 or 12.
Okay, that's not totally irresponsible.
Yeah, like I definitely had nightmares from watching Ghostbusters when I was 5.
Oh, well,
Um,
same. And I was
Constantly
9.
woke
Yeah.
up like thinking that gargoyle was chasing me like
Mhm.
Rick Moranis.
I must interject. It's a terror dog, not a gargoyle, but please continue.
They didn't come off the side of the building?
They did. Any of the things that busted out of the statues are referred to in the Ghostbusters universe as terror dogs.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool.
It is cool, isn't it? I'm glad I corrected you.
Oh, man. R.I.P. Ivan Reitman.
Yes.
Yeah, so when I saw Alien, I was fully ready, I think, for the horror genre. And it was my first restricted movie. It was weird being like the youngest of 3. Parents really developed this like different parenting.
Mhm.
My sister, it like blew her mind. We went to a mom and pop video store for like VHS as a kid. And when I turned 12, it was like at the tail end of like VHS popularity.
Mhm.
And especially mom and pops, like Blockbuster,
Yep.
I think came when I was 13 to Halifax. And so when I was 12, they were kind of like, we got to move some product here and like get people like renting more. And so they developed this deal that for every movie you rented, it was a quarter less. And
Oh,
so it was
wow.
like to get a movie, it was like one movie was $3.50, and if you got 2 movies, they were each $3.25, and 3 movies each $3.
Well, if you extrapolate that far enough, they're all free.
Well, so they wouldn't go as far as free, but they would go to a quarter.
Were they really?
Yeah, and so when I was 12, I went through the whole horror section
Oh my
at
God.
Halifax Video.
What an insane ploy. Why would they? Okay.
Well, you had a week to watch like a dozen movies.
I mean, that's an incredible deal, but seems...
yeah.
I feel like if you're getting away by the skin of your teeth with that deal, like you were determined to watch all those
Also,
movies in a week.
When you're renting, moving product is not like the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think they were hoping with the deal.
You don't need to try to get inside their retail psychology.
Especially, they don't exist anymore.
Right.
But it was a really great like foundational thing for me watching horror movies and getting into them. But I was lucky that I watched some of these movies while I was still genuinely like terrified of like when I watched Night of the Living Dead, I was actually like scared. I wasn't like bored being like, this is kind of like an old movie. Or like I watched The Evil Dead alone. Like I remember my folks went out for the night and I was like 12 by myself watching it and just like terrified, and like all the campiness was like over my head. I was just like, this movie.
Oh yeah, if you don't pick
so
up on the
scary.
comedy, it's like that's not a fun time.
I had a fun time, but I was like sweating after a roller coaster fun. I don't think I laughed at anything. I think I laughed the next week when I watched Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, which is much funnier. Let's see. Layton, ask me what's poppin'.
Rich, what's poppin'?
Oh, fuck.
Oh, sorry. Did you want to go first there, Brian?
No, I don't care.
No. Rich, you should go first.
Layton subverts expectations while also expanding them.
That's what I do.
I just read this book by an author named Oliver Berkman called 4,000 Weeks. It's pretty cool. The tagline is time management for mortals, but it basically flips the time management productivity genre on its head, being like all of them are written from the perspective of capitalism. And this one's written from the perspective of stoicism. So
nice.
it's like how to live a good life and like what to do with their time, and
I love it.
and understanding the different things that fill up our time. So there's a lot of things saying like, don't be a zero inbox person because it doesn't make you feel better. You end up just answering double the emails that the average person does.
That's true, yeah.
You can physically have a zero inbox if you want, but you need to develop some sort of system where you can be like, not today, and send it to like basically your faux ignore inbox. So a lot of it's like not trying to make you the most like productive person, but to kind of examine how you live your life and kind of, the essence of philosophy, like how to live a good life and how to use that time that we have. And lots of cool things. One is starting your biggest project first thing in the morning. It says in the book, many of us will kind of like put something like that as a reward. We're going to get this day-to-day stuff first, and then we'll come back to that project. But in reality, a lot of the time our battery life has gone down a bit and we're not ready to emotionally meet it with the energy that we want at the first thing of the day. So kind of like doing a little bit of a big project each morning and then going on to your day-to-day is like a big takeaway that I had from it.
Do you read a lot of like Stoic literature?
I do. I did philosophy in university. When I went to Australia that we were talking about earlier, it was because my university didn't have a Eastern philosophy course at the time even. And so I was looking at places that had a larger Eastern philosophy course load. I'd kind of done the Great Books program at my University of King's in Halifax, which is all like Western thought. And then I was like, I'm going to go do the other branch from Mesopotamia. And it was really sweet. It was a pretty like liberal college that would let you write, like I got to write research papers called Being Adam Spiegel, which is like comparing Baudrillard with Spike Jonze, who's like a pseudonym for Adam Spiegel.
That's awesome.
And I got to write my thesis on The Big Lebowski.
Oh, that's so great.
It's probably my second favorite movie, and I think the greatest subtle anti-war film ever made.
Absolutely.
Wait, what's number one?
It's got to be OG 1977 Star Wars.
Okay. That's a reasonable
Wow.
choice.
It always wins. I mean, it was my favorite movie as a kid, so there's definitely that heavy nostalgia.
Mhm.
But then it also is like this era of like the film school grads all working on this movie and just making the archetype of what will become something else later. Like even by Empire, it's like they know they're working on a big movie, but like Star Wars, they're like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and the pacing is so weird in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Everything is janky about it.
But I mean, still, like Marsha saved the movie. Like I love going deep on the how bad George's first cut was when he showed it to Scorsese and Coppola, and then Marsha came in and was like, "Hey, why don't we make the Empire attack the rebels instead of the rebels just randomly attacking the Empire, and then we have something called stakes for the end of the movie."
So what clock's number 3?
I think adaptation.
Oh, good choice. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Love that movie so much, and it's so unique. It's interesting with someone like Spike Jonze, who's so brilliant and very happy to just be making commercials and like has such a low output of movies. Like I don't know even if we're gonna get 10 movies out of him.
Right.
Like we're only at 4 right now. So it's amazing that him going from the success of being John Malkovich and then leveraging that into getting fucking Meryl Streep in one of her coolest roles.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And having a very like A-list movie that was up for all these Oscars and everyone coming into their own of like Kaufman making up a fake brother and then in acceptance speeches, like dedicating it to this fictional character
Yeah.
and having people stand up and applaud this fictional character, which I don't think has ever happened before or since. And all the layers of the story. And
Brian Cox as Robert McKee is something that I am thinking about most of the time.
Yeah. I loved how much like real and fake is in that movie, like picking actual like Robert as a real character instead of like a character based on him.
Yeah.
I have that book on my bookshelf of like the storytelling.
do
Yeah.
I.
Me too.
Like,
My favorite tidbit about adaptation is Susan Orlean coming to the set and going up to Charlie Kaufman and being like, "You have no idea how embarrassed I am right now." And then he was like, "No, you really have no idea how embarrassed I am right now." And then like ran off set.
oh, it's so amazing.
Have you guys seen I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
Oh, it was
Yes.
amazing.
I read the book.
That's right. We talked about this on the show. I've not read the book.
Synecdoche is also such a brilliant failure, and like it
haven't
being a
seen that.
failure makes it a better movie.
Yes. Yeah.
The movie's about failure and it's about overstepping your ambition and like his project's getting like Philip Seymour Hoffman's is getting all in disarray trying to be God, and then his partner is getting all this success and her art is getting smaller and smaller till people are like looking through a magnifying glass.
And the way it deals with like aging and death, and like I love the end of that movie. I watched it for the first time when I was like unsuccessfully trying to taper off of antidepressants a couple of years ago. So that was like the perfect headspace where it was just like, why isn't this working?
Kaufman's stuff is such a treat when a new Kaufman or Spike Jonze or something is coming along. Like I really like those directors or artists of any sort take a long time on each project and be like, all right, gonna do this right.
It's gonna be a good one.
Put it out in the world.
Do you ever read any of the like original Charlie Kaufman screenplays?
I haven't. I'm getting into reading more screenplays now. I can find those online pretty easy.
Yeah, you can. And I recommend them for him, especially because as you can probably tell from his entire oeuvre, it's oeuvre, right? You guys.
I mean, Rich is probably the person who's closest to speaking French here. Yeah. It is spelled Oeuvre, right?
Huh.
How do you say that word?
Mon français, c'est terrible.
Anyway, what you can probably tell from Charlie Kaufman's body of work is that he goes very long and is a very neurotic person. And so the screenplays have so much cut stuff, like lots of monologues that are just, it completely makes sense why they're cut. Like it's a smart choice, but they're so good when you read them, like Adaptation and Eternal Sunshine, especially. Yeah.
I will definitely check those out then.
Sorry, guys, real quick. This is from Merriam-Webster.
Oh, got him.
I think it was more like
Oeuvre.
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 Yeah, I like getting that extra like detail in the novelizations. Sometimes they're going off the script and not the final film, so you get those like extra. I'm reading the Alien one right now.
Oh, are there other ones that are on your list? I guess I haven't been super aware of novelizations.
I was like, I'm going to start with Alien and then I'll see where it goes from there. I think one thing that I thought about recently that got me on to novelizations was I had this memory that the person that wrote the novelization to Return of the Jedi couldn't stand that Boba Fett was killed off for comic relief and like actively was like, no, I'm changing this. And now that I say it out loud, I'm doubling down again, being like, I know I read this as a kid in something. So maybe this is like my PSA, like that beautiful podcast about the guy that is trying to remember that song and then hires the band to like replay the song. But so if anyone has read some Star Wars adaptation of Return of the Jedi, where instead of Boba Fett being killed accidentally because his jetpack gets turned on.
He slips on a banana peel and falls into the Sarlacc. Right.
Like, even as a kid, I was like, why would he be so shocked by his jetpack being turned on when he flies like all the time probably and is probably really good at it?
And then he has that open seltzer bottle that he turns on and he starts backflipping.
Yeah. And so my memory of it is that Boba Fett is flying midair and is gonna kill Luke Skywalker, and he's like that badass, and you're like, whoa, like I can't believe Luke's about to die because of this bounty hunter. And then Chewie's like, you gotta shoot Boba Fett to Han, but Han's been complaining that his eyesight's not back. And so then it's the one moment in the OG trilogy where you're not sure if like Han was able to use the Force or whether he got lucky and his eyesight returns right at that moment. Yeah. That he's able to make the shot, and instead of like flicking a switch, he like shoots the backpack.
This is a very specific memory.
Yeah, so he's not on the skiff with them. He's flying over the Sarlacc pit, and he's like, you know, aiming down, and like Luke's already occupied with the other guards, and he's gonna die. And Han makes the shot, destroys, like disintegrates the jetpack, and then instead of like flying off the sail barge, he just falls straight into the Sarlacc pit and dies. Yep. And then everyone's like, cool.
And then the Sarlacc very audibly says, I could get used to this.
I remember that too. He's like, we're going to have a fun time for 800 years or whatever it is. Yeah. And then he just dies. He doesn't escape from the Sarlacc. He doesn't go get a book or whatever all that stuff is. Yeah. And we can all just be happy that this amazing character had a great death and not one that they were robbed of, and then we have to watch. I'm sure I'm gonna like it, but I've only watched the first episode and was kind of a little hard to accept that reality.
Is there another Star Wars show?
There's another Star Wars show called The Book of Boba Fett. I think it's total like Star Wars fan grief. Like everyone just is like, that's not the way to kill off a cool character. Right. We need to bring him back.
We must desecrate his corpse for the next 3 decades.
It's like we need to see him die in a way that is fitting, or else we will forever think that he somehow survives and then goes on to have a better death.
I have always wanted to see a scene where someone uses like a trebuchet to catapult Ewoks into the Sarlacc, and they're just like feeding Ewoks into this thing, and they trigger it, and it goes boom, and then the Ewok lands.
I feel like that's a Robot Chicken sketch.
Very plausible.
Or like a Newgrounds Flash game.
That, Layden, you nailed it. That's exactly what that would be. Yeah. And it's just called Lunch, but with 2 C's.
Takes forever to load. Brian, what's poppin'?
What's poppin' for me? It's an old album, an old funk album. They Say I'm Different by Betty Davis. One of the all-time great, and I would say somewhat unheralded, because I think she's not quite a household name, even though she deserves to be. Does either of you know this album or Betty Davis?
Is this like Betty Davis, like she's got Betty Davis eyes?
No, different Betty Davis.
Different Betty Davis.
You gotta listen to this fucking album. So she was this like super horny out there funk queen who in, I don't know, maybe early 80s just retired. She was Miles Davis's wife, thus Davis.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But also an unbelievable musician in her own right. She died a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, maybe now, in her 70s or 80s. I don't know, in her old age. But basically just walked away from music for a long time. But her albums are just bananas good. Like these incredible musicians who were in the, in kind of the funk scene in the 70s.
Yeah.
She wrote and performed all the songs, and they are just like unapologetically, and I use this as a compliment, like nasty in every sense of the word. They're just like funky as hell, very sexual when they, occasionally. Her outfits are awesome.
I'm looking at the outfits right now. And,
Yeah, look
oh
at the
my
cover of
God.
this album, just rules.
Cool.
It is a great album start to finish. Her singing is just like, she has an amazing voice. Can't recommend it highly enough. So go
Sweet.
check out Betty Davis's They Say I'm Different, and RIP to a real legend who just decided it was her time to not make music anymore and lived a quiet life in the suburbs of, I believe, Pittsburgh for, 30 years, taking care of her folks.
Wow.
Hell yeah. All right. That's what was poppin'.
Cool.
That was a lot of poppins.
There was a lot popped.
And now we skate into our final segment, which is 3 parts gratitude exercise, 1 part petty grousing. It is called Peaches and Lemons, and the theme song goes right here.
Peaches and lemons. Peaches and lemons.
Great. That was the theme song. We all loved it. Let's each start with a lemon, which is a petty grievance or whatever.
I'm happy to go first. I'm going to keep these very light this week.
Yes.
In deference to the much larger lemons happening in the greater world
Yes.
right now.
It's like my Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, you know what? It is pretty much that. It is that for some reason I can't get the mail app on my desktop computer to ever really work. It works fine on my laptop. It works on my phone. On the desktop, all I can do is go straight to Gmail. And for some reason, this fucking Mac Mail thing does not work on my desktop, and I have no idea why. And it is a minor inconvenience, but that's a lemon, and that's my lemon.
That's a good one. Rich, what you got?
I recently sent in an application for the 33 1/3 series.
Oh, nice. To write one, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's the grievance.
Can you say which album it would have been for?
I kind of wrote in my application, like, if you don't accept me because I'm not a real writer,
That hasn't stopped them before.
but someone should write a 33 1/3 for like the 50th anniversary of my favorite record, Dark Side of the Moon, next year.
They don't have a 33 1/3 for Dark.
There's not a 33 1/3 for Dark
What?
Side of the Moon.
How?
What's 33 1/3? I don't know what that is.
Sorry, 33 1/3 is a really fun little short pocket book. Each author kind of takes it in a different direction, but it basically is a fun little like companion to a favorite record.
Oh, that's fun.
It's kind of like almost like
It's a fun series.
a fun little Criterion collection kind of thing of
There's like hundreds of them now or something, right?
Oh, these are so cool looking.
yeah,
They're very cool.
they're pretty sweet. I didn't think I was going to get it, but I think I put in a strong application, and I do want to write something on it next year. Maybe it'll turn into writing, like I've written a couple articles for Vice before, so maybe something like that. I want to write something like very detailed on the history of the sync with The Wizard of Oz, because that was such a big jumping off point for me and my music. Like my first EP, I wrote to sync with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and then after
Awesome.
getting a cease and desist from Dr. Seuss Enterprises LP, I made a sync to a movie I made out of like 33 films from the public domain, including Night of the Living Dead for my first record, and then I did The Little Prince for my second record,
It's a great idea.
and then I did Alice in Wonderland for my third record.
Wow.
And so I'm like very interested in a part of this like online weird synchronicity community, and haven't really seen like a really in-depth investigative kind of like piece on it. So I want to kind of like get back to the original forms where like the first iterances of someone being like, hey, do you know if you press play on Dark Side of the Moon on the second roar
Yeah.
of the MGM lion, it syncs up somehow.
It's so interesting you say that because on Sharpling's other podcast, Double Threat, which I am also a huge fan of, they literally do that this week. This most recent episode,
Oh, whoa.
Really?
they're like, let's listen. And they start the album and they start the movie when they're supposed to and just kind of talk. They don't get all the way through it.
Yeah, depending on how high you are, it works once or twice or 2.5 times.
Yeah, right.
I went in college to a screening where like the entire 500 people in the auditorium were high.
Oh my God.
And it was amazing walking into that room because I couldn't get into it. It was like this old like singleplex theater around the corner from where I grew up. And I knew that in the back door, if you like pulled it right in the right way, you could sneak into the movie theater. And so I snuck into the front and just like looked at these glazed eyes as far as the eye could see.
Rad.
And then like found like one empty seat and was like, perfect.
The room of people who would care the absolute least that you were sneaking in.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this 33 and the third list. How do they have like
Like some not the second highest selling record of all time.
Hangin' Tough by New Kids on the Block, but not Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah. The two most interesting chapters I think I pitched were one about the sync and one about how inadvertently On the Run is the most popular experimental piece of music of all time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And like how that song is in the zeitgeist and like how many people have like interacted with it and how weird of a song that is musically. And yet, you know, because of its placement on this record has been listened to more than any John Cage or Lamont Young or...
Yeah, I would read the hell out of both of those things, and I hope you get an opportunity to do them at some point.
Thanks, yeah.
Leighton, Lemon.
My lemon is that, once again, nose is fine all day. I sit down to record, and I'm just in excruciating sinus pain and have to do the embarrassing thing of just like wiping my nose. I'll record. Why? Why do we have to do this at my face? Why?
Maybe you're allergic to amazing podcasts.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're so right. That's 100% what it
You're
is.
allergic to quality content.
Yeah, so one day I'm going to go into anaphylactic shock when this show just gets too good.
Well, it's never going to happen. So I think you're in luck.
Yeah, I'm safe. I'm good. I don't even need an
Yeah.
EpiPen. We're not going to get close. Okay, that was lemons.
Great.
Let's do peaches. I'll zip through mine.
Great.
On Monday, I went and got a Bloody Mary at 1 p.m. and it fucking ripped. Sometimes you
Nice.
just need the booze soup.
That's right.
It's like that. Number 2, had never owned a handheld vacuum until semi-recently.
Look at you.
Shout out to a handheld vacuum. That shit whips. As someone who hates to clean, wow.
It's nice that you don't have to suck the stuff up off the ground with your mouth anymore.
I know. What have I been doing this whole
I
time?
know,
Yeah, right?
jeez.
It's bad for you and it's difficult, but with a vacuum, it just does it for
It's
you.
less fun, but yeah. And then my last peach is that with the new Cyberpunk update, I've been getting back into it. I haven't touched mods for the game yet. And turns out there's a very active modding community. So I will be diving into that bullshit with my sticky little hands, getting on the Blade Runner. They have like a complete Blade Runner overhaul thing where like somebody put crazy time into like changing all these assets, adding music to the radio stations, like changing the color grading, changing the way that like rain falls. So I'm excited to check that out. Those are my peaches.
Cool. Rich?
Number 1, this Moog synth that I found on Kijiji. I don't know if you guys have Kijiji down there, but it's our
Right.
Craigslist.
Ah,
We do not. Yeah, as far as I know. Yeah.
Surfing. I spend a lot of the winter surfing here when I'm not in this bedroom making music. And it's very cold and you have to like shovel your
Right.
car out before getting out to
Yeah.
the waves, but it's really fun. And probably number 3, going on tour with Twerp, who are such lovely humans, as you know.
And you guys leave, it's like less than a week now, right?
Less than a week from
Yeah.
yesterday.
wow.
Yeah, being on tour and doing support is such a lovely experience. You don't have to worry about like the shows, especially with like a band like Twerp. The shows are all selling out, so there's no like extra like, hey, can you make sure you're posting about
Right.
this? It's like, oh, they've got it. So you just have to show up and hang out, and we're all driving around in a van together, and It's all the things I love the most about music without the moments where you're posting about your own headlining shows being like, come on, buy your tickets,
Right.
please, like twerp fans do. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, says Daft Punk.
And those guys, they're just easy to be with.
Yeah.
Like, it's all good
Yeah.
vibes.
And the merch, amazing. I want one of those shirts so badly.
Oh, yes. That's a great design.
Yeah.
Planet Bass.
Leave your troubles behind.
Brian, Peaches.
Yes. Peach number 1 is Audrey's school had a book fair, or is having a book fair this week. And I worked the book fair today.
Oh my
And
God.
when the preschoolers and the first graders came in, and it's just, it's nice to be back on campus with them. The kids have been back, for a long time now, but they're just allowing parents back on recently. It was nice to be back on the school campus proper and seeing a bunch of little kids go absolutely ape shit for a bunch of books. As soon as you walked in, they put the books for teens section right there. And half the books were like Five Nights at Freddy's or Bendy and the Ink Machine, or like books about various horror games for adolescents. And they had to hide them because what was happening is the little kids would come in, see them, get scared, and then, have an adverse reaction. As, by the way, my own daughter did when she was going to bed last night and got scared of the image on the front of the Five Nights at Freddy's book.
It was haunted bread.
It was not haunted bread. It was a haunted bear, which I will argue was much scarier.
Nah, Brett's worse.
It was nice to be on campus and see him.
Have they picked the books before this? Like in Canada, we had this day that you're describing, but we'd always like get a wish list before that you would like check, like the Scholastic
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
That's what I had growing up too. This is not that.
This is just a big old bookstore
Big old
in the
bookstore,
gym.
yeah. In this case, in the art room, and they set up the shelves, and there were kind of vague themes, and the kids just go nuts and pick up books.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
It's exciting, especially when you're a preschooler and can't read or know what a book is. It was fun to watch the preschoolers wandering around trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Peach number 2 is I had lunch with Daniel Avidan's parents this week because they were in town. They're two of my absolute favorite people. I don't get to see them much because they don't live in LA. And, they were around and I got to hang out with them. They are my surrogate parents. My parents died in the early 2000s, and Audrey has one living grandparent. And these two are Audrey's grandparents by proxy. I text Audrey pics to Danny's mom, and, she's great. His dad, Avi, is great. They're just the sweetest people. And I'm thrilled to have them in my life, and also that I got to see them this week.
That's wonderful.
They are the parents I don't get to have anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And my final peach is I went to a live music performance last night. There's a contemporary classical piano series here in LA called Piano Spheres. Shout out to Richard, who's a listener of the pod, who is the assistant director of this. And they had their first show in a while last night. Absolutely incredible pianist, Vicky Ray, who's also a composer. The theme was frozen improvisation. Apparently there's some Stravinsky quote, like all composition is frozen improvisation. And she played works from across the 20th century. She had some Bartok stuff from like around 1920 or so, all the way up through the world premiere of a piece that she played, where the idea was she had an iPad in front of her, which was hooked up to a computer where the composers, she was not one of the composers of this piece, although she kind of was for the reasons you'll hear in a second.
Mm-hmm.
And the computer would generate sheet music for her to try to play. And based on how well she played it, it would adjust the next thing it showed her.
Whoa.
And it was also in
That's rad.
8-speaker surround sound. So there's like
Whoa.
shit moving around in the speakers while she's playing these extremely difficult parts.
Yeah. Is this at like the Disney theater? Or
This
what?
was right next. So the Colburn School of Music is right across the street from it. And they have a lovely little concert hall called the Zipper Concert Hall. And Piano Spheres does most of their shows there. And it was a cool piece. Also, to me, the real revelation was she played a transcribed Cecil Taylor solo, which was just like unbelievable. I mean, Cecil Taylor is just a genius. And it was really cool to hear this thing. It's all 20th and 21st century stuff. the harmonic language. Like there's some serial stuff, there's some atonal stuff, there's all sorts, all over the map. And it was really a fun variety of things. She played one piece, composer named Bud. The score was just text directions, play a high note. And then it's like typed out from the late 60s, a piece of like typewriter paper. And that's the score. There are some pieces that were straight up just written out compositions. There are some pieces that had an improvisatory element. It was all over the map. And it was a really wonderful recital by just a virtuosic musician.
These are monthly?
Not quite, but close to it. It's like during a season, they'll do, 6 or 7, and the season lasts 9 months or something.
Yeah, I'll look out for that.
Yeah, they've put on some of my favorite shows I've seen in LA, and it's all piano-based or keyboard-based music. That's the name, Pianospheres. And I've learned so much by going to these shows. Like a lot of the times I'll know a few composers, but always there's at least one composer that I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know anything about them, which is the point. They also, last night they had a prelude, I think, by Ligeti, younger Ligeti stuff when he was a little more, not very, but a little more tonal than he ended up being.
Yeah, before the...
Yeah.
That sounded like 2001, right?
yeah, totally. Yeah. It was cool stuff. So anyway, happy to be seeing live music again. Also, it's one of those things where I watch her play and I'm like, I'm garbage. Why do I even sit next to a piano? Like, someone of that level of ability. And she's revealed her age because she said it in the context of something. She's 63. So she's been doing this her whole life.
Oh, cool.
And
Wow.
I don't see many pianists like in their 60s giving like a rad performance.
Oh my
like
God.
that.
She's not playing like these dinky, but these are like very involved pieces that require just insane stamina and musicianship. And she's this like, skinny white lady who just walks out and is very modest and then just absolutely shreds. It's so great. And it's fun to watch the audience at these things too, because it's a bunch of, classical music nerds, which is a great crowd. A lot of gray hair. Rich, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
This was really fun.
My pleasure. It's so fun chatting with both of you.
Yeah, this was a treat.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this is the longest we've actually like hung out, right? Like we've had backstage and various things, but I don't think we've had like an extended block, right? Have we? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, no. I think this beats. We did have a long hang at the Opera House.
That's right. Yeah.
Backstage, but I don't think. I feel like we had other pressures
right.
that night that
Don't worry about it.
didn't let it be 2 hours and 11 minutes just being like, and another thing about zombie movies.
Well, I always know it's a good episode when I have like 20 tabs open from searching stuff.
Where can people find out about the tour and where to see you? By the way, I should have told people, like, your live show is just the best. It's so fun and interesting and a joy to watch.
Thanks, yeah.
Probably a lot of people listening to this don't need to be sold on twerp, because they kind of know what they're in for. But if you guys don't know Rich's show, I really, really love it. It is, fun, life affirming, and just fucking great.
Yeah, thank you so much. For the American shows, you can go to Twerp's website, which you'll probably have an easier time remembering than spelling my name, which is RICHAUCOIN, like someone pointed out once recently that it's like AU is like the symbol of gold and then coin. Yeah. So Rich Gold Coin.
Which makes you sound Jewish.
But I don't have that domain name. So richocoin.ca because I couldn't get .com because a libertarian politician from Massachusetts has that already.
Well, I don't know. As soon as I hear gold anything, I think of all of my dad's friends who are all, Mr. Goldfarb, Mr. Goldstein, Mr. All the fun North Jersey Jewish surnames.
Yeah. So it's gonna be fun. Starting in Texas next week, and then we go by the end of April all the way up to Seattle, touring all up California and the West Coast.
Right now, I will certainly be at the Los Angeles show.
There's a Los Angeles show?
Yeah, there is on April 21st.
Dude, I want to see my boys.
The Terragram on the 21st.
Yeah. Well, a certain Mr. Jerks Tenno said he was also planning to be there.
Ooh,
yes.
Exciting.
Wow.
And I think I'm going to try to come to the San Diego show too, a couple days prior.
Oh, sweet. So that's that plan from the prior times is still
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be rad.
And where can people find you on social media?
Oh, social media, just Rich Aucoin, all the things, Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, and haven't made a talk yet. But I'm there. When I think of a good idea of what it's going to be, I'm perpetually like that guy from the wonderful I don't want to be around anymore. I think you should leave.
All the shit
Where
off
I'm
me.
just like, I did too much. I don't even want to be around anymore. And then they're like, what's the show? I'm like, I don't know what So I have like a TikTok and I haven't posted anything yet. And I'm just like, I don't know what I want to do on TikTok.
Yeah, basically same. I was like, oh, I know what I want to do for a TikTok thing. And I made a video. And then in classic TikTok fashion, it never posted and they took it down like 2 seconds. Because TikTok's thing is like just randomly delete videos for no reason.
You've ticked your last talk.
I ticked my talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, all the things, just my name, RICHAUCOIN.
Cool.
Beautiful. Well, folks at home, I usually say a bunch of nonsense. And due to the general world right now, I would love to be able to say something meaningful as a source or message of, strength or comfort. And I don't have words, but just take care of each other and take care of yourselves. All right.
Well, I'd like to end this on a hopeful note, which is that I noticed today that if you change the last letter in Joe Biden's name, his name is Joe Bidet, which I think is pretty awesome. So
Bidets are great.
Bidets are great.
Yeah. Shout out to Tushy.
Hey, I have a Tushy. And I have a bidet. Bam.
All right. Well, I guess that's the end of the show. Goodbye.
Yeah. If you want to see more content about my Tushy, follow me on Twitter.
Stop this. Stop this madness.
Late Night is produced by Brian Wecht, Leighton Gray, and Jarek Centeno. Follow us on Twitter at Leighton Night, on Instagram at Leighton_Night, or email us at leightonnight@gmail.com.